Welcome to episode 1038 of The Sleeper and the Bust. I am Justin Mason, joined by Jason Collette. Jason, how you doing?
I've been better health-wise, but I'm happy to be back. I had to miss last week because I was doing an NL-only draft. I had to draft for two different people. Two different people couldn't make it. And so I was trying, and the funny thing is both guys were named Jeff. So I had to do two different Jeffs. I had to go by their last names, so put together two teams. But the cool part is we're at the Winston-Salem Dash Stadium. It's one of the million truest parks around here. So I forget if they're Truist Field or Truist Park, but for an A-ball stadium, extremely impressive. So looking forward to going to a game there now that I've been there. But last night went to the Kannapolis Cannonballers. It was 45 degrees. It actually snowed a little as we were walking in. So, yeah, that was not what we expected when we booked this family. I mean, because it was my brothers and we had everybody. We had 10 of us, and we left in the 6. We just couldn't take it anymore. It was also 14-5 at that point. Offense is not happening in the major league level, and we'll talk about that. But it was certainly happening last night in the minor league level.
That sounds pretty brutal. I've never been to a game that had snow. That's a new experience.
Well, it was the forecast called for a little bit like a blow through of rain, and I walked outside and I'm stepping out, and all of a sudden I'm like, "Holy hell, this is sleet!" And sure enough, it was. You could see it. I was like, and then it happened again during the game for a couple of minutes. So it's just, it's just unusual. Was not expecting that.
Yeah, but I mean, glad the game was fun while you were able to hang in there for it. We are going to talk about some two-start pitchers, and we're going to talk about some closing situations, kind of get some, brief thoughts on those. And we're going to move pretty quickly today, so that way Jason can get ready for his upcoming vacation that he is going to be going on.
Heading to Florida Monday. Monday, which is tomorrow as we're recording. Going to Tropicana Field as a family. Nice. Thursday for the first time, and I can't. Maybe since we left Florida. I've taken the kids once since we left, but as a whole family, we haven't been in ages. So I'm looking forward to that. Should be plenty of elbow room with a day game against Oakland. But. I don't care. I'll be there. I'll have a good time. There couldn't have asked as a Rays fan, couldn't have asked for a better opening schedule with 3 against Baltimore and 4 against Oakland. So keep ponying up on those. Those will be fun.
Yep. Let's hit some quick news, and then I want to get your take on a Rays player because you are our Rays correspondent. But Lucas Giolito is going to hit the IL today with an oblique, or they're calling it, I think, abdominal or side tightness. Sounds like an oblique strain. He's expected to miss 2 starts. How worried are you on Lucas Giolito now?
A, he's not going to miss 2 starts. He's going to miss more, and we all know this. Mm-hmm. So that's the one thing. B, I only have him on AL Tout Wars in my RotoWire Online Championship. No big deal. No big deal.
I only have him in the main event.
Yeah, no big deal. Seriously, I expect him to miss more than 2 starts, and you should too. And if he only misses 2, then okay. But mindset-wise, we talk about this all the time on this podcast. Put yourself in the mindset, double what the first thing is you hear. And if he comes back earlier, great. I hope he only misses 2 starts. Obviously, with where I have him, I need him to only miss 2 starts. But I'm expecting him not to pitch until May. So that's just where I am with that. And go from there. There's a lot of injuries. I mean, we'll talk about another one. The guy hasn't even made it on my team yet. I just fabbed him in labor, and I'm not going to be able to use him yet, most likely. It's awful.
Yeah, I agree. I think, obviously there's nothing actionable. You just got to throw him on your IL or on your reserve list. But typically these injuries take anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to completely recover from. So
especially pitchers, because you don't want them pitchers. I've seen some try to come back early from it and they re-injure it. So with pitchers, with hitters, it's one thing, but particularly pitchers, they have to have that core part of it for their delivery. And when you're doing that same repetitive motion, how many times in a game between warming up, between pitching and all of that, they have to take caution. And if he misses, like I said, I'm happy if he misses 4. If he needs to take an extra start off, take it off. Don't rush back, because if he does it again, then you can guarantee he's going to miss a ton of time, and that would really suck.
Yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good in his first start, so the skills are there. Just gotta hope the health comes around. But just be prepared. He's going to miss at least, they say 2 starts, but we're looking at more like 4 to 6. Xander Bogaerts leaves with a hamstring injury. No update yet on whether or not this is going to force him to the IL, but just kind of keep this in your mind. It also would mean that Trevor Story would likely move back up the lineup and potentially start playing shortstop, which would kind of lessen the chance that he gets second base eligibility early in the season. He'll get it at some point, but just kind of a heads up there. Your guy, AJ Pollock, leaves with a hamstring injury. How worried are you about this one?
And he did it aggressively, turning first base, thinking he may be able to go for a double on something that, quite frankly, I didn't think looked like a double off the bat. Given his history, worried because he's the top of or near the top more, I forget, but because they had more players or fewer players over there to bid on. It's a busy Fab weekend. I forget which weekends were what. I'm going to shut off video on my end. Hopefully, my mouse is now dead. I can't get to the middle screen. Okay, let's see what's happening here. Anyhow, I'm worried because it's the player, and I never liked that. Yeah, my computer doesn't want to do anything. It will not let me to the middle of the screen. And I'm
okay.
You hear how? I hear you.
Okay, you can hear me. Okay, so I'll just talk.
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, you're back now.
Now it's back in the middle. I'm gonna turn off video.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is
no piece of crap. All right. Go ahead. I'm trying to turn video off. I'm frozen. I'm trying to turn video off, and the screen's freezing me up. All right,
your video's off. This is kind of a bummer of news because he was, I think, leading off yesterday, and has been hitting up really high up in the lineup, playing every day. This is also one of the things that I was a little bit concerned about with Pollock. One, he's just got a long history of injuries, and the Dodgers did a really, really good job of optimizing him and not putting him in situations where he was going to get hurt. Not to say that this has anything to do with the White Sox because it's so early in the season, but this is concerning. It seems likely he's going to miss some time here. He isn't in the lineup today, so we know that he's not playing today. We'll see if the White Sox decide to make a move and put him on the IL, but just keep in mind you may need to pick someone up in your leagues for him. Helio Ramos is going to make his debut today. This is really surprising, considering that Ramos was not expected to be up in the major leagues for the Giants until the summer. Farhan Zaidi, who is the general manager of the Giants, said just I think 3 or 4 days ago that they expected him to go down to AAA, be down there until the summertime, June or July, and then make his debut. And so it is a little bit surprising that he is being called up today. Still kind of yet to be determined how much playing time and what the corresponding move is here. Mauricio Dubon made kind of a bonehead play on the bases the other day, and so he could be the one who's being sent back down, or this could mean an injury. And it's a little surprising that it would be a little surprising if they were going to bring up Helio Ramos as a platoon player. And so I wonder if this means that there's somebody's hurt. Is Jock Peterson hurt, or is Yastrzemski hurt? And that's the reason why. Obviously, we're going to see here in the next couple hours what kind of corresponding move goes along with this. But I can't imagine they're bringing up a guy like Helio Ramos if they're not going to play him somewhat regularly. He's the number 6 prospect in the organization. He doesn't have the same prospect kind of pedigree and hype around him that he did at one point. I mean, at one point he was like moving into like top 50 prospect territory, and people were really kind of excited for him as a prospect. He's kind of fallen back a little bit in the last couple of years, and it isn't even considered one of the Giants' top 5 prospects at this time. So I'll be very, very interested to see whether or not or how much Ramos is playing and where the corresponding move kind of is. And Jason has returned. Jason, I was just kind of talking about Helio Ramos and then the Giants bringing him up. Any thoughts on this? I was a little surprised just because he wasn't expected to be up until the summer, and I don't know what the corresponding move is going to be here, but I'm wondering if maybe someone like Mike Yastrzemski is hurt.
Yeah, I was going to ask what's the corresponding move because I was watching some of the game yesterday, and I didn't see anything happen to Yastrzemski, but he
was also pulled for a pinch runner. Austin Slater came in and pinch ran for him during the 6th inning. So I don't know if it's that or Mauricio Dubon made a really bonehead move in extras on the base paths. I don't know if they're just sending him down. I just can't imagine they're bringing up a guy like Ramos to be a short side platoon bat.
Do you even think they're bringing him to be a starter though? I mean, yeah, again, just statistically scouting, this is an extremely high risk profile. High risk profile.
It absolutely is. I don't know why you don't keep him in the minors so he can play every day and really work on that. Work on the contact skills.
Agreed.
Especially because I mentioned about 3 or 4 days ago, Farhan Zaidi was asked whether or not or when he was going to be up, and he said he's going to be up sometime in the summer, like June or July. And so it's kind of a weird move. So I don't know what to make of it. I don't know that he is a guy you want to pick up in anything outside of maybe a 15-team league because I just don't know where the playing time really comes from unless if Yaz is hurt and they put him on the IL today, there's your answer because he could get some decent run in right field.
Agreed. I guess we'll find out afterwards. To me, I'm not. It's had to be a super deep league for me to be interested in him.
Yeah. Josh Lowe
active lineup this week. But if you're in a league that requires you to start the guys, if you pick them up that week, that may be worth sitting this one out.
Yeah, I agree. Josh Lowe has been playing pretty much every day since getting the call after the Rays made the trade to kind of open up some room for him. How excited are you about Josh Lowe playing every day right now?
Yeah, it's funny because I made the joke with one of the guys that I know works for the team. I was like, it's incredible how much Josh resembles his older brother in both setup and swing. And he replied, yeah, but he's much more athletic. And I was like, yeah, kind of like me and my younger brother. My younger brother threw in the 90s in high school. I never came close to that, right? But that's what he does. And you can tell that either, if their father was their swing coach or they had the same swing coach, it's like everything looks the same, everything with it. And it's crazy. And the other part of it that works is the plate discipline. I've been very impressed with how Josh Lowe has worked deep into counts. He's had several, like 4, I think, already in the first 2 games, 4 full counts where he's worked the count, much like Nathaniel does. I may have mentioned this here. I know I've written about it, but I tweeted about it recently too from Ray's Metrics. He put a video together, slow hit that he goes for, and you could see the same thing that Nathaniel has. They love low balls. They love going after fastballs down in the zone. A lot of home runs came on pitches down in the zone. Where Nathaniel got beat, where he continues to get beat, is velocity up. And you go look at the numbers of what Nathaniel Lowe has done. 75 and higher. He was 1 for his career heading into last year, and then last year I think he ended up with 8 hits. So he's something like 209 for his entire career on velocity in the upper third of the strike zone. And so I expect more experienced pitching staffs. That's not Baltimore, but more experienced pitching staffs are gonna start looking for that and seeing if younger brother has the same hole with that. I would expect him to, but that's not Baltimore. They'll get Oakland next, and that's mostly not Oakland, but Frankie Montas will be in the series, so he likes to work in that zone up. So that'll be a good start if you want to do some. Multiple people text me about what should I do about. Well, I would be aggressive. I mean, he's up to stay. Remember that the team gets incentivized if Lowe finishes in the top 3 for Rookie of the Year. Lowe gets his service time, and the Rays get an extra compensatory. They get an extra pick, and so they're incentivized to do it for that. I don't expect him to go back down. So I think he's up playing just about every day. He may get platooned every now and then, or maybe he goes to a DH spot as they like to keep everybody fresh with stuff. But we've already seen 2 games and 2 different lineups. Yandy led off game 1 and didn't hit yesterday, last I checked. Unless he pinch hit, but we've already seen some of that shuffling around. Harold Ramirez hit 3rd on opening day. Choi was in there. That's the platoon you can expect, the Ramirez Choi thing. And then Taylor Walls and Gandhi Diaz, that kind of platoon. Now, it's not a positional platoon as much as the lineup circumstance, but we'll see how all of that goes.
Yeah, I agree. He was dropped in a number of my leagues last week because for those who don't remember, the move to recall him happened after Fabrian last week, and so a lot of people in redraft leagues, once it was announced he was not going to make the major league rotation, that dropped him and moved on to someone else, and so he could be available in a number of leagues. He's available, I think, in one of my main events. A couple other leagues, and I'm going to be aggressive because it is not very often we see a young guy come up like this and get the benefit of pretty close to full-time playing time. And it looks like, from the first few lineups of the Rays, that he's going to benefit and potentially be in there full-time. There is risk to the profile. He strikes out quite a bit, but he's got power, he's got speed, and I think he's one of the guys worth taking an early gamble on this year. So,
I had a question though for those who dropped him for the first fab period, knowing that this current period that we're in was a very short one. Why? If just for the outside chance that this could have happened, because we knew that Kevin Kiermaier and Austin Meadows were on the trade block. We knew it. Now, the fact that they went to Detroit, that was still a bit of a shock, but maybe we should have seen that coming when Riley Green got hurt. But we knew these guys were on the trade block, and with this being a short fab period, hindsight's 2020. But it's not a move I would have made, even though he plays for my favorite team, whatever. But I still would have taken the chance because most likely people were taking Josh Lowe towards the end of what would be the active, and there's no active or reserve since you can take whenever you want to in the redraft 30-man leagues. But there's a chance people are taking him an active, and then we're just like, oh, he didn't make team. I'll just dump him and go chase somebody else. So that obviously because my own. Actually, no, we'll put a pin on that because we're talking about that later. But I'll tell you what I did on a short opening weekend. And I've already benefited from it. And I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't a short weekend, but because it was, I did. And we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I mean, I dropped Vidal Brujan in a league.
We'll see that you should though.
Yeah, and I mean that one worked out. I didn't have Josh Lowe anywhere other than a kind of a dynasty format, so I obviously didn't drop him there. But like, I understand dropping a guy like if he's not going to be up and you don't think he's gonna, he's not going to make the opening roster. You don't think he's going to be up. Um, I think everybody was just a little bit caught off guard. Maybe they shouldn't have been, like you mentioned. I mean, Meadows has been on the trade block all off season. There's been talk about him going somewhere, so. And we've had just a ton of late moves, including opening day moves, which is just something unusual for us. I think some people, a lot of us, are just caught off guard kind of by this weird off season because of a lockout.
The opening day moves, that's the weird stuff. It's like, oh, hey, Chris Paddock. Nope, you're not going to San Diego. Pack your winter gear. You're going to Minnesota for now. So yeah,
it was screw everybody. Robert really Torres shares. Yeah. Let's talk some two-start pitchers. We have Daniel Lynch is got a 2-start at Seattle and then versus Detroit. Any interest in picking up a Daniel Lynch?
Not really, but I would say, when you look at, I don't know if folks, you may be freaking out a little bit about your fantasy team after 2 days, and if you're not, if you are, you spend all this time all winter invested in your fantasy team, and they get out to a stumbling start, you're like, oh my God, this sucks. My season's over, right? If you're freaking out about your team's batting average, understand the entire league's hitting 222 right now. The entire league, it's awful. Last year, I tweeted this out yesterday. Last year in April, the league hit 232. So we thought last year was bad. It's even worse this year. And I know there have been some crazy games like the Toronto, Texas on opening night, on Friday night, right? But on the whole, yesterday we had a 1-0 game that ended in the 10th inning with Mondesi walking it off, right? So we've had this crazy, the swing, the whole pendulum of games, if you will, right? The league's hitting 2. Now the good news is they're not striking out as much though. The strikeout rate's 23.5%, which is decent compared to what it has been, and they're taking their walks. They're just not getting hits. And I say this because this could be a year of a pitcher, and because we may see runs, but we may not see them off home runs. Because the other thing, you'll recall about this time last year that Ben Lindbergh and Rob Arthur authored a piece at the Ringer talking about what's up with the offense and looking at the baseball. And this is when they initially cited Dr. Willis about some of the work that she was starting that we then later learned in the summer about. So they talked about a particular metric in that said, hey, this is home run, like home runs per contact, and the formula for that is home runs divided by at-bats minus strikeouts. So you're basically saying all the balls that are put in play, how many of them are becoming home runs? And they looked at it. There's an article, I tweeted about it a few days ago. You can find it for the show notes, but it talks about how the spring training and the regular season rates mostly line up, right? And so I've looked at the last couple of years, and this is something right now I'm tracking daily because over the last couple of years, I've learned, and looking at the data, within 10 days, within 10 games, we pretty much know what type of season it's going to be for home runs. The data holds up really well in this. So the home run to contact metric in spring training has continued on a upward trend since I looked at 2015 to this season. And remember, in Arizona, we don't have the humidors in play. We have extreme friendly environments in Arizona. For the most part, we even have them in Florida because most of these stadiums are on the coast and they have the sea breezes blowing them in. I mean, how else did you explain Higashioka hitting 7 home runs, Mickey Moniak hitting 6 home runs? I mean, come on, guys. So that's happening. But this home run to contact over the regular season now has gone down every year since Happy Fun Ball of 2019. So it went down a little in 2020. It went down a little in 21. And right now, as play starts on Sunday morning, it is the lowest it has been in 6 years. It is 3.77%. And to frame that, last year it was 4.96. It was 5.3%. And so this is something I'm looking at daily. I even went back and looked at April as a whole. Went to our splits leaderboard and said, "Hey, show me what April looks like on the whole." And it's you don't get much of a rebound over the course of a month, and so this is something to watch closely. This is what my next RotoWire article is going to be on. But last year I wrote this same article. It kind of sucked because Ben and Rob's article was awesome, and it came out the day after mine did behind the paywall at RotoWire. Right, but and they use this metric. I was looking at something different, but overall, it was still good information. But again, this holds up really well, and we should know early. And when I wrote that article last year, I said, okay, we're on pace for about 6,200 home runs, and we finished with 59.44 last year. So we didn't even break the 6,000, and early on we thought we were pacing the 6,200. And so if this rate keeps up, we could see even offense is going to look like, because in spring training we saw fewer home runs, but we saw more runs on the whole because there were more doubles and triples and guys getting on base. The collective ERA of all the staffs was kind of stupid. I mean, it was when I wrote the piece that I wrote at RotoWire this week. I want to see exactly what I cited, but the ERA, the collective ERA in spring training was pretty bad this year because where all the runs were coming from. But again, it's just something to think of as a whole. Is where I know we're talking about 2-start pitchers here, but I just want everybody to understand it's a weird situation for offense right now because ball's just not going anywhere for home runs, and so you may want to take some more risk on some of these. Getting back to your question, no on Daniel Lynch. Oh.
Yeah, I think I mean, if you're in a really deep league, I can understand it. It's 2 starts against offenses you're not terribly worried about in good home parks, but I just feel like there's so many 2-start guys because teams are playing pretty full schedules next week.
Yeah, but the other thing is there's not a lot of good 2-start like quality. Like Zach Wheeler's got 2 starts this week. That's great. But there's not a lot of like frontline guys getting 2 starts this week. So we're, Robbie Ray is one, but for the most part, we're not getting a lot of quality 2-start weeks. So maybe
I'm just lucky because it feels like when I look at my lineups this week, I'm not having to stream a whole bunch for 2-start guys.
Maybe because you have a bunch of 4 starters. That's why.
Yeah, I do have a
bunch of 4 starters.
I do have a bunch of 4 starters on a lot of teams. Matt Manning versus Boston versus Kansas City. I don't want to have anything to do with this one. I know Manning looked good in spring, but starting off versus Boston, and Kansas City isn't a walkover lineup anymore. Any interest in Matt Manning?
No, hard pass. If he can get through this, maybe next time around we'll see what his 2-step looks like, but not this one. And like you said, with Kansas City, it's a little different. Yesterday St. Louis handled them. That was the game yesterday, right? It was St. Louis versus KC. Or am I wrong?
No, I don't think
it was. I think it was White Sox at KC.
Yeah.
Never mind. But that's been a well played series for the most part, but low scoring in that regard. Yeah. So, but still, no.
It was Cleveland versus Cleveland versus Kansas City. Went 1-0 in the 10th.
That's what. Because I watched the opening day, it looked rather miserable on opening day there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no thanks. There's still too much talent in that lineup. By the way, that play Bobby Witt made yesterday to cut down the run at home. Oh my god, dude! Wow.
Yeah. He's already. We're only 3 games in, or probably 2 games in for them. And he's been very exciting to watch so far. He's going to be a really, really fun player.
You can see the adjustments in game. Yeah, you can see the adjustments in game because I watched that opening day and his first couple of plate appearances. Man, that would have been Bieber.
Did I lose you again?
Even Bieber. All right. You still there?
Yeah, I lost you for a sec.
Yeah, I don't know if it was you or me. Okay. But I was going to say you can see the adjustments in game because his first 2 at-bats, he was getting pitched, kind of up and then sliders low and away, and he couldn't lay off them. But then his final at bat, when he drove in the game-winning run, you could see he made the adjustment quick and was like, "Oh, I'm going after this one now." And so it was encouraging to see that kind of plate maturity from him.
Yeah, he's been really, really impressive. It makes me very bummed that I did not get him in any leagues this year. The price just got out of hand for me. So, but I'm definitely going to be a guy that I'm regretting not having on at least one team during the season. Zach Thompson of Pittsburgh has got an interesting two-step. He's at St. Louis and then home versus Washington. Any interest there?
That's not a bad one.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say that's not a bad one, I'm talking like 15 team mixed. So yeah, I'd be willing to take the chance on it with the understanding that he may not. But I get it. I would preface this with a lot of guys, and we're already seeing it this weekend. Not too many guys are qualifying for wins. There's been a lot of pitching by committee for the most part. Now, like guys like Minaya and Darvish look fantastic, and some guys have gone to 6. I think we've seen one guy go 7. I think I forget. But not too many are doing that. Guys are getting pulled at 4 2/3. McClanahan was not happy about getting yanked to 68 pitches. I wanted him to throw one more pitch, but yeah, he was not happy with that. Some other guys as well. But there's been a lot of pitching by committee. So if you're trying to forecast wins, understand that most of these guys are not going to get the full 5 because that's what we're seeing. Go look at the box scores. It's happening. And then some of these things you think like a sure thing. I mean, raise your hand if you started Brandon Woodruff yesterday in DFS because you were like, "Oh, this will work out well."
That hurt my tout team. I was actually having a really, really good day in tout. And then
that killed one of my 15 team draft and holds. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's all over the place right now. Even with it kind of stinks because you're trying to figure out where the profits are. So if the league's hitting 222 and everybody's pitching well, it's like, okay, great. But that's why Josh Fleming has a win and Shane McClanahan doesn't have a win.
Mm-hmm.
This is why.
One of the guys that went 7 innings yesterday was none other than friend of the podcast, Kyle Gibson, who went 7 innings and struck out 10. So
yeah, and if we're thinking about, I don't know if any Rays pitchers have a 2-start week next week. I don't recall, but yeah, if you're facing Oakland, it's pretty much leave that guy in there.
Yeah.
I mean, if Kyle Gibson can do it, obviously anybody can do it. But yeah, I don't know if any of the Rays have a 2-start week next week. Yeah. I'm just trying to think through if somebody's gonna be able to pull it off, but I don't think they do have a 2-start week. But it's because Corey Kluber pitched A, which means he gets the White Sox over the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing a 2-start thing, but again, Tampa Bay is also not letting their guys go. So yeah, you'd be better off starting Josh Fleming than you would Shane McClanahan anyhow.
Which is something people, if you're win seeking, especially at the end of the week and head-to-head leagues, it may be a better strategy instead of streaming starters, streaming kind of middle relievers and trying to, find those teams going up against bad teams like Oakland, like Pittsburgh, and looking at who their bulk guy is and taking the shot there. So highly recommend doing that kind of work if you're seeking wins, especially in your head-to-head category leagues at the end of the week. Eliza Hernandez is at Minnesota and then home versus Cincinnati. Any interest there?
Yes. Is that how the schedule is lining up?
I believe so. If I'm correct, I could be wrong though.
I'm seeing the Angels and the Phillies.
Okay, maybe I messed that one up.
But if you want to confirm, I'm not as excited.
Yes, Angels versus the Phillies.
Okay, I'm not terribly excited about that. Could be wrong, but I'm not terribly excited about that matchup. Runs there, especially the Philly. I mean, we saw what they did against Oakland pitching, but that's what their offense can do. And then the Angels are similarly front loaded as well. I would believe I could find better options there. So I was lying about 2 start weeks. There are some. Ryan Yarborough's got a 2 start week. Ryan Yarborough and Luis Patino both have 2 start weeks this week. Oakland and the White Sox. I would take either one of those guys over Hernandez against those teams.
Yeah, I would too. I was more excited with Hernandez when I had the incorrect matchups. But Philly's offense, man, they look super, super powerful. The Angels look really, really good offensively right now too. But Yarborough, I'd be very interested. I might be, if I'm win seeking, I might be less interested in Patino. I just don't know how deep the Rays let him go, especially the first couple times.
He's got one of those starts here against Oakland. And I agree.
Yeah.
There's a depth thing that it's all in his control. I've seen some innings where Patino's gone out there and has been able to get out in 15 pitches, and I've seen others where he's pushing 30. It's all up to him. And with Yarborough, with the newfound velocity that he's had in spring training, I want to see how that plays out. I'm not going to see. I think I get McClanahan when I'm there on Thursday, which would be great. Or I get Kluber. I don't know. No, Kluber pitches today, so. Yeah, I don't know. I may get McClanahan. I forget what I get on Thursday, but with Yarborough, so that'll be tomorrow. I want to see what his velocity is holding up, and or if it was just a spring training gun. But he did look better in spring training than he did in the second half of last season. Maybe they use an opener. I mean, given they have,
I would hope so.
They're carrying 15, 16 pitchers right now. There's no reason why they can't use an opener in front of them. They had. The guy that I really want on a team that I don't have yet, Jason Adam, and go watch him pitch and you'll see why. I really want to see what happens with him. But they had him warming up yesterday in the 8th next to Kittredge. If the Rays would have scored in the 9th inning, or the bottom of the 8th, Adam would have come in to finish that game. So I would expect Adam to pitch today. But if he doesn't pitch today, there's a good chance, or maybe even if he does pitch today, there's a good chance he comes in and opens on Monday for Yarborough.
I would prefer him to have an opener. We saw it last year, just how much more effective he was when he had an opener in front of him.
Historically, it plays out. You look at the data historically, it absolutely plays out. I know sometimes they don't have the roster flexibility, but right now they do. They absolutely have it right now. And if you have it, use it.
Absolutely. Patino is one of my most rostered pitchers, so I definitely will be using him for this 2-step. I don't know that he's available in any league for me to pick up, but maybe in shallower formats, he's a guy you want to attack Oakland this year. This is going to be a common theme when you hear people talking about streamers and 2 starts. You want to attack Oakland this year. It is one of the worst lineups in baseball.
Oakland, Pittsburgh. I mean, you really can't. You kind of Baltimore, kind of. Especially
Baltimore is sneaky. Got some offense.
Yeah, it depends. Matchup wise, but like I said, it's like Pittsburgh and Oakland. It's like absolutely. It's like, oh yeah, they're facing that great. I don't care who else. I don't care who the second matchup is. With that, but those are two. It's going to get worse before it gets better because Brian Reynolds is going to go away, and if I'm Oakland, I've already sold everything else. Why not listen to other offers? I mean, they still got Montas. They're going to move. They could potentially move Sean Murphy. Who knows? You'd hate to see it, but.
Jordan Hicks has a 2-start versus Kansas City and then versus Milwaukee. He was, he made the rotation. I was a little surprised that's the route they're going. Any interest in Jordan Hicks?
No, he's got to build up. He's got to get stretched out. I mean, to me, this is a 12 to 15 batters face situation at the most, and see where that goes. But no, I want to see. I mean, we know that he can throw hard. That's never been in question. Can he command it consistently? And the fact that he's got to try to stay in a game longer. But I'm thinking this is 3 to 4 innings outings, both of these, and that's that. You may get some strikeouts there. You could. I mean, there's definitely the potential for strikeouts in both of those lineups. But that's it. That's what you're hoping for.
At this point, he's just a glorified opener until he stretches out. I think it was DJ Short. I think it was DJ Short that mentioned the longest he went in any of his spring starts was an inning and a third.
Wow.
So he may go 2 innings, max 3 innings in these starts. So there's no chance you're going to get a win Like I said, you're going to get strikeouts, which is fine. But I just can't imagine there isn't a better two-start matchup on your waiver wire somewhere.
I mean, do something like this. You got, our boy. He's no longer your boy. He's our boy. Our boy, Andrew Heaney, right? Andrew Heaney has the Twins and the Reds. I'm going there. I'm going there before I'm going to Jordan Hicks.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Adrian Hauser has at Baltimore and then home versus St. Louis. We just mentioned Baltimore is not the walkover that it once was. Any interest in Hauser?
Yes, somewhat. I would say obviously more in NL only league, kind of where you have to. I mean, you don't have a lot of choices, but if he somehow, I mean, he's not going to be a free agent in the NL league. He's going to be on somebody's roster. So if you're looking at, do I want to use him this week? I say absolutely. In a mixed league, in a 12, no. In a 15, yeah, I can take a chance on that because Hauser's pitching style in particular should keep him out of trouble against what can get you into trouble with Baltimore.
Yes, I completely agree there. I think he's a borderline 15 guy, probably not a 12 guy. But yeah, I mean, he looked pretty good in spring. And I mean, this is why he's in the rotation. And while it's not a great matchups, it is in bad parks. It's not the worst of matchups. So like if you're really desperate, but I also like to stay a little bit more conservative with my streaming earlier on in the season. I just think you can run into so much problems and put yourself behind the 8-ball as opposed to getting yourself ahead. So I tend to play it a little more conservative. What about Dakota Hudson versus Pittsburgh and then versus Milwaukee? This was I kind of forgot about Dakota Hudson during draft season, and this may be a mistake. Are you interested in Hudson?
I'd still take Hauser over Hudson here. I know we just said, hey, it's Pittsburgh, but then we also had Baltimore in that capacity. And then the other start is at Milwaukee. So I would take Hauser out of this situation like 5 out of 7 times between these two.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. I've never been a Dakota Hudson guy. And Michael Wacha at Detroit and then home versus Minnesota. Any interest there?
That's intriguing with depending on which Wacha they're going to get. I mean, remember we talked about Wacha last year. Wacha was garbage until he got rid of his garbage cutter. And once he threw away the cutter, then he was like, oh, hey, this got intriguing. And then Boston picked up on that, much like that's when they grabbed Nick Pivetta. They've made Nick Pivetta serviceable. I mean, that's one of the things that they're similar pitchers. Right. And so they've made Nick Pivetta serviceable. So for Wacha, that he likes to work up and down and change speeds, this could be, you look at that Detroit matchup, you're like, he could probably strike out like 8 guys in that game with that. And at Detroit, allows him to pitch up and down because, that kind of, and where he likes to pitch, the type of, he can take advantage center field and keep the ball in the yard. It's the home against Minnesota one that concerns me. I want to see what happens when he's pitching at Fenway. But that said, when he was a member of my favorite team, he tended to pitch pretty well at Fenway for whatever reason against that. So, sign me up for this matchup this week.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on this one. Wacha looked pretty good in spring. I mean, these aren't, great matchups, but they're not matchups that I'm super afraid of either. So, I think of the ones we've talked about, he's probably my favorite of the streamers. I think Zach Thompson's the only one that's kind of close in that regard. So
at least Wacha get the run support you would expect, but yeah, I mean this could be a nice sneaky 2-start week. Yeah.
What about Chris Flexen at Minnesota and then home versus Houston?
That's a tough one. The Minnesota is yet to really start hitting the ball. I was watching a little bit yesterday and then listening to the rest of it on the way to the minor league game last night and heard the Buxton home run call, which was great. And then by the time I got and into the tap room, they'd given up that lead. So it was like, ugh. And Houston is pretty put up some nice numbers in this opening series against the Angels. So this is one I would prefer to sit out.
Yeah, I think the matchups, especially the Houston matchup, dictates kind of going away from it. I like Chris Flexen. I think he's going to be very serviceable over the course of the season, especially for deeper league players. But Houston's lineup is still pretty.
I would say this is a good example of go with a good quality reliever over a 2-start guy. And if you're in a mix, this would be a good example of, hey, I'm going to go with this guy and look for, especially again, now that there's a lot of pitching by committee, you could pick up a win or a save out of this because of the way guys are being used. I mean, I'm losing count of how many box scores I'm going through and seeing 5 and 6 pitchers being used. So take advantage of it now while it's here. Just like we did last year. We preached this. Well, we preached it in 2020. We preached it early in 2021 as well. Until these guys get adjusted, we have these expanded pitching staffs. It's a nice, if you can figure it out, some ways to steal some nice wins or a handful to get a save. Like if somebody had, the good and the bad of it. If you had Tony Santillan, you're like, oh, wow, hey, I got that save. That, oh, God, I got that ratio the next day when he came out and opened the next game and got blasted. Right. So it can go both ways.
Yeah. Carlos Hernandez versus Cleveland and then versus Detroit. Any interest there?
Oh man, I want to. This is a guy that I spent a lot of I have a lot vested in Carlos Hernandez.
Too.
A lot vested in Carlos Hernandez. I do want to go with this 2-start week because Cleveland is having their struggles hitting, and Detroit hasn't really blown the doors off of anything yet either. So this feels like, and this is, if you're not going to start him this week against these matchups, when are you going to? Because this is what he's going to do this season. Cleveland, Detroit, these are his division mates. He's going to have a lot of this. And so you have to be able to start him here, because if you can't, then this is going to come up like 3 or 4 more times. Then why do you have him? So yes, give me the 2-start Carlos Hernandez this week. Fingers crossed that he can go 5. I just don't know if that's going to happen yet. He did not have a good spring, but he was Arizona. He was awful this spring. So keep that in mind. He's got to come out and turn it around. I don't know if they have another option like, hey, you're up, you're down with that. But keep in mind, he did not have a good spring. I really want to chalk that up to it was Arizona. But understand, last year, when he was firing out of the bullpen, remember, he was getting all those strikeouts out of the bullpen. Then when he switched to the rotation, the strikeouts went down and the walks were still there, but the outcomes were good. And when you watched him pitch, you could see it. I mean, he was a guy that I sat down and watched pitch like 5 times as a starter because I was just very intrigued with when I heard he was going to the rotation. I'd seen his last relief. I think I got him for like $4 in Fab, and I was like, all right, let me watch this. And the first outing, I was like, oh, he's holding up well as a starter. And then I just kept tuning into Kansas City games when he was pitching because I wanted to see how it was going to work out. And I think he's on half my rosters this year. So I need this to work, but I'm not wish casting this into he's going to be in my teams this week. I'm not benching him.
Yeah, I'm starting him too. He's one of my more rostered pitchers as well. I know the spring was brutal, but I think you nailed it kind of right on the head. If you can't start him for this 2-step, he shouldn't be on your team. So I'm going to roll with him this week. He gets that first start against Cleveland, who has scored a total of 2 runs so far this
they're in mid-season form.
Yeah, so I mean, if you can't start him against Cleveland and then and Detroit, I just don't know how you're going to roster him the rest of the way. So I think now's the time to start Carlos Hernandez and kind of hope and pray. So what about Taylor Hearn? He's home versus Colorado and then home versus the Angels.
I'm gonna go with a pass for now, but I am. It's tough. It's like I want to go for a pass for now, but I am intrigued by him the rest of the season because I want to see. I want to see how he handles this particular week. But I saw him pitch twice in spring training, and I'm intrigued by his 2022 potential. I guess thankfully for him, he gets to avoid this Toronto mess because this has not been a pretty series for them. Colorado in Texas should be nice, but then he's got the Angels. I could like in an American League, if I'm in an AL only, I want him in my lineup this week. I don't want him in a mixed.
I think I would start him in a 15-team mix, and he's one of the guys. I think he's third or fourth on this list of guys we've talked about today for me in terms of two-start guys. He looked pretty good in spring. He's pitching both of these starts at home, which is a good ballpark. Colorado, just had a series at home, is now going to be on the road, which, is always something I like to attack, is that first or second game of Colorado leaving home and going on the road. So, the Angels one is a little bit scary. If you're playing in a daily moves format, you might want to skip the second start of the two. But the first one's enticing enough for me if I'm looking for a two-start streamer to take a gamble in a deeper league. Obviously, 10 and 12, probably you're going to want to go to other guys. But I think this one's a little bit interesting for your deeper league guys. And in DFS, especially that early start.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some bullpens real quick because, as expected, there is a lot of closer chaos. Let's start with your favorite team. We've now seen two different guys get saves, right? So who is the guy that you're most interested in rostering, or is this just going to be a straight committee again?
Yes. So we've had two games. Honestly, the usage hasn't surprised me. All right. So opening day, they're tied with Baltimore, and Andrew Kittredge came in the eighth inning. And again, if you follow this team, this should not surprise you. Kevin Cash is not going to keep his best reliever because Kittredge is the best guy in the bullpen. I mean, that I'm not going to argue. It's just that he's not going to hold him to the ninth inning. He's going to use him in the best leverage situation. It's exactly what he did. And then it worked out because here comes the ninth inning. And then they had JP Fireisen start the ninth inning, but they had Brooks Raley warming up. So if Fireisen couldn't go 1, 2, 3, Mullins was coming up fourth. They brought in Raley. Raley struck out Mullins. Game over. Raley got the save. That's the move I was talking about earlier because in tout, we have the swing position. And on a short weekend, I figured, you know what? Brooks Raley was a guy that I was going to draft. I had him on my draft list for tout. It just never made it, never got to that point. And so I said, with a short weekend, I can afford to go with 10th pitcher. So I picked up Brooks Raley was a tertiary bid for me because of all the activity in tout. I lost all the other ones. So I got Brooks Raley for $1 in a $1,000 fab scale. I threw him in swing and he got me a save. Yay. How can you not? That's the best thing that could ever happen. So now I got him. I can reserve him because I have Giolito that I can, I'm going to put to the IL or Lance Lynn, one of the two White Sox pitchers. I've got one of them. I forget which one I have, but one of them I'll keep Raley in. But that's kind of a short weekend move I was talking about. But yesterday, it was 5-2, and in the eighth inning they had Andrew Kittredge and Jason Adam warming up. And I said this earlier. I think we were on air at the point where if the Rays had scored in the bottom of the eighth, Jason Adam was going to come in. And Kittredge came in the ninth inning. But Kittredge did give up a double to Jorge Mateo, and he gave up another double, I think to Austin Hayes, I forget. One of them was soft hit, one of them was hard hit. But he gave up two doubles in there. And then if he did not strike out DJ Stewart at the end of the game, which was probably what the outcome was going to be anyhow, Brooks Raley was coming in again to face Cedric Mullins. Cedric Mullins was on deck. Raley was in the bullpen. And he could have been 2 for 2 with saves, and I would have been giddy. But Kittredge struck out DJ Stewart, and game was over. But that's where so far it appears that Kittredge is the preferred closer, but he is not the only guy that's going to get the ball in the ninth inning. So far we've seen 3 different pitchers get the ball in the ninth inning based on matchups. We've seen Kittredge, we've seen Fireisen, we've seen Raley. 3 pitchers in 2 games get the ball in the ninth inning. So that's what you can expect. Kittredge again is the preferred, but if they're in late and close games in the eighth inning, he's coming in there. I don't expect we'll see Kittredge in the 7th inning or the 6th as we saw sometimes last year, but Yeah, who knows? But that's how it's playing out so far. And some of those guys, we haven't even seen some of the other arms come out of the pen yet. So it'll be curious to see where Colin Poche looks really good already down in Durham. It sucks that Colby White had TJ surgery. Colby White was a guy having 3 different drafting holds. It took him in like the 49th or 50th round. I was super excited. This is a guy who struck out 110 guys in 60 innings last year across the minors. And he had TJ surgery very late in spring training. So that sucks. So if you're looking for somebody to come up, Tommy Romero is going to be a name that'll come up eventually along with Poche and Ian Seymour, but no Colby White. So that sucks. But yeah, it's going to be another closer by committee in Tampa Bay. And just that's what it is. Every year they have 10 plus guys getting saves. It's not going to change.
Yeah, I right there with you. I picked up Rayleigh in a really cheap league or a really deep league for cheap, and lucked into a save right there as well. But I just don't trust. I mean, Kitcher's going to lead the bullpen, but he may lead it with like 18 saves. So
I'll tweet it out. There's been 45 different pitchers get a save in the Kevin Cash era. 45 different pitchers, and the Alex Colomé is the runaway leader. But when I looked at it, I want to pull up this leaderboard again. I think there's something along the lines of like 6 guys have double digits. That's it. 6.
Mm-hmm.
And there just hasn't been. All right, here's the stat head report I pulled out. Colomé 95, Boxberger 41, Diego Castillo 26, Sergio Romo 25, Emilio Pagan all in one season 20, Jose Alvarado 15, Andrew Kittredge now has 10. So it was 6 guys. Andrew Kittredge is now the 7th guy. Everybody else is single digits.
Yeah. What about Texas? Any inkling on what do you think they're going to do? I mean, their manager had said that Joe Barlow is not necessarily the closer. This sounds like a committee between Barlow, Matt Bush, and Greg Holland. Any idea on who you would go after in Fab?
I'm still going with Barlow. Barlow hadn't even pitched yet. Of the 2, that's the thing. Greg Holland pitched and didn't pitch well. Matt Bush has pitched. Brett Martin has come into a game. Josh Spores, who didn't look good, came. I watched his outing. That didn't. So he's pitched. But Barlow's the one guy who hasn't pitched. Like, to me, they could say he's not the closer, but the fact that he's the only guy that hasn't pitched kind of tells me he is the closer. Whether they're saying he is or not, Texas has not had a lead late in the games, and Barlow's the one guy who hasn't pitched. So he's either hurt or he's the closer. So to me, I'm reading between the lines. He's the closer.
He could be it. Hopefully we'll get some more information if they're leading today, but that doesn't seem like it against Toronto. So
no, like I said, long-term interest. I know he's in the minors, but I'm still a DeMarcus Evans believer. And if it's tough to stash, but keep an eye. Like I know CBS has this, and I know that NFBC has it. Watch list, or CBS calls it scout team. NFBC calls it watch list, but whatever. Put these guys on sort of reminder of like, hey, this. But you can keep an eye. But keep an eye and see what DeMarcus Evans is doing, because I'm still a believer in DeMarcus Evans.
Yeah. Cincinnati, we saw Cecilian get a save, but there's still a lot of people on the Art Warren bandwagon. This feels like just a straight up committee. Is there someone you're going to pick up in Fab this week, or are you staying away from this whole situation?
I would stay. Yeah, I mean, like I said, preseason, Luis Sessa was the guy that I kept recommending to everybody. Luis Sessa was the guy that I wanted, and I'm still on the Luis Sessa wagon because wins and saves. Like, to me, he's a decisions guy. So he may not get that, but he could be a decisions guy, kind of like a hybrid between, it's like Sergio Romo, Yusmeiro Petit type of guy, where he could get some wins, he could get some saves, type of thing. He is, he did pitch on Thursday, hasn't pitched again yet. Art Warren is yet to appear, but everybody else, like you said, everybody else has pitched, with Lucas Sims still being on the IL. If everybody were healthy, Lucas Sims is still the best option there. But if I could get a cheap dart, I did take Luis Sessa in a couple of draft and holds. And I think in the one and only I have, so I do have a few shares of him. the way that Cincinnati is probably going to use him this year. If you're a bad team, what's the use of having a primary closer? So Sess is a guy that I still want, and I still recommend others have him too.
It's interesting. I was thinking about dropping Sessa today because I drafted him late in a number of leagues, and I'm looking to maybe stream some 2 starters. Maybe that's one I got to reevaluate before Fab runs today. But
that's the other thing. That's another guy they could look at fluffing up his value and then moving at the deadline too. There's
that's true.
Value. There's value in him. He's pitched in a contender. He's pitched in a tough ballpark. He's shown durability. So there's value in fluffing him up and moving him too.
Yeah. I don't think anybody on this team hits 20 saves.
Oh God, no! I don't see that either.
I think you're going to see a lot of guys with 8, 9, 10 saves, and that's just not a situation I want to delve too deep into. What about Seattle? We've now seen them get 2 guys get saves in Seattle. Any read on that, or is that just a straight committee like it was last year?
Yeah, I think it's a committee because Steckenrider. I watched Steckenrider's outing on Friday. And it looked good to me. I mean, especially the changeup looked particularly good with him. So I liked his outing. I did not. Again, I was listening to the game yesterday, so I didn't get to see what Diego Castillo was doing. Velocity wise, it looked. I'm seeing 95.5 on things. So and he struck out 2 of the guys that he faced. So I mean, that's a solid outing for him. The velocity is back up because I want to say he was sitting like 93, 94. As we got to the end of last season. So that's an encouraging sign. But again, committee. I did see Sewald pitch. I watched him pitch the 8th inning on Friday with that. And so they had him there. Then they've used Romo. So they've used all their bullpen, all their active bullpen right now late. Munoz came in and worked, but Munoz gave up the home run to Buxton yesterday too. So maybe that pushes him down the chart a little bit. So I still think it's a Steckenrider Castillo situation. That's how I looked at it coming into the season too, because Seaball just has too much value in the way he can work in the 7th and 8th inning. I just didn't see him. And the only reason he got the saves last year was because the way guys were getting hurt. But Seaball was picking up a bunch of wins last year in late leverage as Seattle continued to win those late and close games. But there's still too much value in him to be able to do that and pitch multiple innings, whereas Castillo was not a multiple inning guy. Steckenrider could be, but Castillo's definitely not. I would apply the same rule. I don't see anybody getting 20+ saves here either, but I see multiple guys with double-digit saves. Yep,
I completely agree. In Minnesota, we saw Tyler Duffy get the first save opportunity and promptly blow it. Is he the guy? Are they going to go back to him, or is this going to be a committee, or do we have someone else who emerges?
Yeah, I mean, if you watch, I'm not going to be able to pronounce his first name, John. I'm just going to say John Duran. My goodness, holy cow! That split sinker, whatever it's splinker, I think he calls it. My goodness, what a pitch! I mean, opening day was fantastic, but he's also extremely inexperienced. We have Jorge Alcala, who I've been talking about all off season. He pitched 13 pitches and did his job. Pagan is yet to pitch, but he's probably still in transit coming from San Diego to there. So they do have their options. I mean, best stuff is Duran, and it's probably not even close. But I'm not ready to give up on the Alcala after touting them all winter and saying this is the guy that I want. This is the guy that I have in 50% of my leagues. And again, I'm not wish casting him into this role. Duffy has got good stuff and can get strikeouts and has done it before too. But Alcala had such a fantastic second half. I think he's earned the right to get the next opportunity, but we'll see what Rocco does. But I'll just remind everybody, Rocco's from the Kevin Cash coaching tree. And it wouldn't surprise. They were never married to Taylor Rogers. It was always a relationship of convenience because he was on the team. And there was always other guys getting saves as well. And they traded him. Just like we talked about the strong possibility of that happening, and it happened on opening day of all days, but it happened. I think the one guy we can fully roll out is Caleb Thielbar, as the only lefty in the pen. He's definitely going to get that lefty bias where, sorry, son, we need you for the matchups. So unless it's like a Cedric Mullen situation like Brooks Raley just came into, that type of thing. But other than that, I don't see how he's a factor. But we'll see what happens if they have a lead today. Who's the next guy up? I really don't expect it to be Pagan. I know Paul's talked about it, and you've talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
Guys with a 1.8 home run rate do not last long in the closer role. I mean, he got 20 saves in 2019 for Tampa Bay. It's one thing pitching in Tropicana Field. It's another pitching in Target Field and Guaranteed Rate Park. You know, there are some situations where that not going to play well for him. So he may get a handful, but I would be stunned to see Pagan get primary saves just because the risk of home runs is too great.
Yeah, this has the feeling of another committee. It just really does. I mean, and like you mentioned, Baldelli's from that Tampa Bay system. And I think we all got really excited about Taylor Rogers because he was still on the team. And, you know, it looked like he potentially could be the guy there in Minnesota. But the fact that they traded him on opening day tells you exactly what they think, which is a reliever is a reliever, and they're just going to ride the hot hand or go with the guy who matches up better right now. And so I like Akala a lot. I've also got Tyler Duffy on like 5 teams in DC. So I was highly invested in him early on in draft season. But I don't know that we see any reliever in Minnesota get to 20 saves this year. So if you want to play the game, just know that there's a really good chance that you're wasting fab on a guy who's probably sharing the role. Yeah. Boston is another tricky situation. I think everybody thought Matt Barnes was going to be the guy, but the Alex Cora came out and said that, you know, they hope that Barnes becomes the guy, but right now there is no guy.
It could be Garrett Whitlock. How about Garrett Whitlock getting an extension?
Ooh.
Whitlock's extension, including 22 salaries, guaranteed at $18.75 million. In total, he has earnings potential of $44.5 million through the 2028 season. Not bad for a guy the Yankees left exposed in a Rule 5 draft pick.
Wow. Is this just happening right now?
Just like within the last 30 minutes.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe I don't know. Are they still toying with him in the rotation? Or it's so hard to figure out what Boston's doing. If I'm taking a dart throw at someone, it's probably Hansel Robles.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
But I mean, I don't know that I want to take many dart throws at this. Hansel Robles cheap for a few bucks in a 12 or a 15 isn't going to hurt you. But I really don't know what they're doing. Whitlock would be a great answer. I hope they go to Whitlock, even though I don't have him on any teams. But he would be the correct answer for them. But this has the feeling of a role that not necessarily is going to be a committee, but just switches hands a bunch.
Yeah, I was gonna say Robles because everybody else may be focused on the other options, but Robles is sitting there dirt cheap, and I can't help but think back to watching him in the postseason when kicked my favorite team out of the postseason. Robles looked really, really good in the postseason to me. And I know the overall numbers last year did not look good. You look at him, you're like, ew, that's disgusting. But when you look at what he did, even in Boston, the overall numbers were, he still has a problem with the walks. He was still 4.7 per 9, but he was striking out a lot more guys. The strikeout rate went up from the strikeout rate last year as the Twin was 23%, went to 30%. As a member of Boston. But like I said, he looked really good in the postseason, and he's been there. He's done it before. 38 saves over the past 3 seasons in total. So it wouldn't surprise me if he got the opportunity. Because again, I would hate to see a guy like Whitlock limited to the 9th inning because they've got a bridge. They need something to get there too, and they may need him. They may need him in the rotation. So we'll see where it goes with Whitlock. But Robles, if you have a ability to stash, maybe worth it.
Yeah. What about Baltimore? This is a situation where they traded two of the guys that people thought were going to be in play for saves, and they I think on opening day traded both of those guys away, or maybe
that morning. Yes.
Yeah. So who do you think emerges in Baltimore. And is there anybody that's even worth picking up considering how bad we expect Baltimore to be?
So I would say yes. There is in a 12-team mix. I don't know how you can do it. I know saves are saves, but I don't know how you can do it. But I would say this, and I know the early numbers were bad, but I liked what I saw from Jorge Lopez on Saturday, or is it yesterday? Lopez, I forget if it was Friday when he pitched. So Jorge Lopez came in, and the outcomes were unfortunate. Yeah, it was Friday he pitched. The outcomes were unfortunate, but the inning, he could have been out of the inning unscathed. And it happened where, it was a bleeder here. The strike zone got really small on it, like he got squeezed a couple of times. Then there was an infield, essentially a swinging bunt by a Rosarena. Swing and bunt, got bases loaded and nobody out. But when I'm watching Lopez and watching him touch 99 and then watching him throw a really good changeup, he hit 3 pitches. I mean, remember, Lopez used to be a starting pitcher, and they decided, hey, let's go to the bullpen. But he looked much better even in that short stint as a reliever than he does as a starter. So and the other guys like Dylan Tate, Dylan Tate to me is he doesn't throw hard enough. He's a guy that you want to bring in to get ground balls type of thing. And I don't believe in anybody else in that situation, but Jorge Lopez looked a lot better than the results, than the outcomes show. And so if I want to if I'm in an AL only league or a deeper mixed league, that's the guy that I'm going to hang my hat on because that'll play 99 with the changeup. That kind of reads like Hansel Robles type of situation. But I was impressed with what I saw, even though the outcomes say like, oh my God, why? It's just one of those things where everything that could go wrong in that outing did. And you think about that, you're like, okay, yeah, it's Baltimore. These things will happen. But, you can't predict swinging bunts. You can't predict a Rosarena beating out a swinging bunt. You can't predict an umpire going to squeeze a guy a couple of times where he's not getting the calls. It worked out for my club. It didn't work out for Jorge Lopez, but he should not lose his chance at the committee based off that one outing. I'm sorry. His stuff's too good for that. And maybe they do let him become the primary guy, because if you're going to try to build somebody up to trade him, it's going to be that team. That team's going to be the one to do it. But again, I was impressed.
Yeah, I was originally when this trade happened, I said it was going to be Paul Fry. I think Fry's going to get saves, but I think it's going to be matchups dependent, with Lopez getting probably 2/3 of the saves to Paul Fry's 1/3. Dylan Tate, I know he's kind of still a sexy name to people, even though he's 27 because he was such a high pick. But I don't think he's going to be the guy. I think it's going to be shared between Fry and Lopez, with Lopez getting the lion's share of that job. Just, probably to do exactly what you just said, which is trade him away, get his value as high as possible, and then trade him away for, more buildable assets. This is a Baltimore team that is quietly becoming very interesting to watch. But they're going to continue to grab more assets to try to strengthen and bolster the farm system and then the major league team as well.
As the velocity, we're talking about Lopez last year, looking at the StatCast, his average fastball was 95.3. Out of the bullpen on Friday, 98.5 was the average. So he's throwing 3 miles an hour harder out of the bullpen. And I don't, one ball in play, just like it's funny that we can already see sliders. That's the funny thing. One appearance, and I can already see 2022 sliders from Jorge Lopez. 96, he's got very low average exit velocity, but he's got no strikeouts. He's 1 percentile walks and strikeouts, whiffs. It's kind of funny to see this. We have sliders based on 23 pitches. But yeah, he's throwing harder, and I definitely would give him another chance.
Absolutely. All right, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Jason, where can you be reached, and what are you working on right now?
I am working on vacation right now. So I am flying to Fort Myers tomorrow. I'll be down there until Friday night. And but I am working on that article about offense, looking at home runs and trying to write that out to say, look, here's what we're seeing so far. And I really want to try to publish it Thursday so I could say it's been a week. This is what we're seeing. Act accordingly. because again, I wrote the same article last year and said we're at 6,200 home runs. That's going to be a drop. Plan accordingly, and it was even lower than that. And so if we're going to get back down to where things were previously, like in some of the earlier seasons where it was in the mid, like I'm going to go back to 2014 here and look at some of those home run totals. If the page or here we go. So like, 56-10, which is what it was in 2016. If we're going to go, or 55-85, which is what it was in 2018, if we're going to go back to that level, because again, we've been, 67, 66 and happy fun ball year and 59, 44 last year, 400 home run. We're going to drop another 400 home runs. Where are those going? How's that going to affect what we're doing? Especially if you're one of those teams that came out of the draft like, hey, I need power. Oh, this guy maybe he'll do this, or you're over projecting somebody. I think I told one of our listener Craig the other day, we may have like 3 guys that hit 40 home runs this year. Yordan Alvarez, I can safely say, will be one of those 3, is my opinion. That's what we were talking about. But that's the kind of thing. It's like when people are projecting out 40 home runs, they need to dial it back. We're maybe getting into the 30s, and the guy hits a 40. It's a special year. We'll see how this stuff plays out. I know you said that in the San Francisco game, the ball was flying, the Marlins, but that was one of the 2 parts. Said it would be a factor in San Diego and San Francisco.
It was also a day game with no wind.
That also helps. Day games, I know the ball's more active in day games there. That I do recall.
Yeah. So when especially those day games, there's no wind coming off the bay, the ball just flies. And I think now with the humidor, it's going to fly even more. So if you're looking to target like hitting in DFS on a Giants day game, it's not a bad play. So you can reach me on Twitter at Mason FWFB. I'm writing daily over at Fangraphs, which is pretty much where all my written content's going to go throughout the season. And you can hear me on this podcast, TGFBI podcast, and the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast. Patreon is going strong. We had an awesome opening day watch party with a lot of people kind of joining in and watching the games with us. I'm sure we'll do another one here either this week or next week. But you can get in on those watch parties by joining the $4.20 tier of the Patreon. We got some other cool things that are going to be happening with that as well. Link is in the show notes over on Fangraphs. So for Jason and myself, thank you for listening. Have a fantastic baseball season.
See you guys.